Hey guys, it's Lori with a plan in mind. Um, Coming back today. It's been quite a while, but the weather's been really awful lately. So very cold, not much to do outside in the garden, and nothing really to do in the orchard. But that's starting to change now that the weather is getting back on track. We're back to 50-degree days and probably about 35, 40-degree nights. So it's time to start doing some things. And just in time, we have got our new seed order. So that's very exciting. This came in the mail this week. For years, I have been ordering from Baker Creek Seeds out of Mansfield, Missouri. I've always been happy with their seeds. They've always done very well. So this year I decided to go ahead and order again. I only ordered a few things. So I needed some cool weather type seeds. So I was running low on my lettuce seeds, running low on broccoli seeds. Ended up getting some carrot seeds. Did get a few tomato seeds, and I got something new this year that I had read about actually in a book. So this past year I've been doing a lot more reading, and I read a book about heirloom seeds in Kentucky. I'd have to go back and see what the exact title was. But apparently there's something out there called greasy beans. So I thought I would kind of have to hunt them down and come across them at like a farm stand or something, because they sounded pretty exclusive to the area of Eastern Kentucky. So to my surprise, they were actually in the Baker Creek seed catalog this year. So these ones are actually called Greasy Grits, but that is a bean. They're called greasy because they're very shiny pods, but they're supposed to have a really mellow, nutty flavor. So I'm gonna try those this year. I'm also gonna be trying some regular bush beans. I didn't do any bush beans last year because we had plenty down in the pantry. I did do my fence row with some pole beans, but pole beans, they're okay and they grow well and they provide. I kind of prefer them for fresh eating because honestly, if you've ever grown pole beans before, you realize that they've got like a string down the edge, and that's just not real appealing to eat. That's a lot of work if you're going to take those out in a big quantity and try to can those. So if I grow pole beans, I'll use them more so for fresh eating, or I will steam them and freeze them in small quantities, which is what I did this past year. So but definitely looking forward to the greasy beans. If you've ever grown anything like that, leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear about your experience. This is a new one for me. So aside from that, I got my favorite. This is my absolute favorite. That is the Landis winter lettuce. This is an awesome lettuce head. Good flavor, compact little lettuce head that you harvest all at once. Makes a very nice salad. It grows well into the winter. I think I showed you in a previous video that I actually had still some growing around January 1st. We got a big freeze just after the 1st of January, so those didn't make it past that. But the Landis winter lettuce is a great seed for cool weather growing, and they do very well, and I've noticed a lot of them have self-seeded. I've got Landis winter lettuce coming up actually in the cracks and grooves of my walkways, so they're very hardy, very easy to grow. So I picked up some more Waltham broccoli. I did very well with this last year, and it was super simple. I do have raised beds, and around March 17th, mid-March, I just threw them into the raised bed, covered them lightly, hoped for the best. They all seem to have come up. They were very dense, but once they got to about 4 or 5 inches tall, I did transplant them into my larger garden, and I separated them out and put them about 18 inches apart. They did very well. They made it through some of the heat. I didn't mostly harvest them until later in June. actually spent or took most of it for freezing, so I could have some soups and such through the winter. So we're running real low on that in the freezer, but I'll be doing those again this year. Some other things that I got. Let's see. I'll show you my tomatoes in just a minute. I've got big tomato plans this year. I'm gonna try this one. This one is called Butter Crunch lettuce. It is a obviously crunchier lettuce, very heat tolerant. So one of the things I've noticed about growing here in western Kentucky is that the spring does start pretty early. We'll get wonderful days in February, we'll get awesome days in March, but then it can be very damp. It can kind of fluctuate a little bit. Come middle of June, the heat is really coming on. So any type of plant that takes a little bit longer to develop, you have got to have something that's a little bit heat tolerant. So I'm hoping that this will take me into July, but honestly by July 1st, I wouldn't be surprised if it is absolutely done, because it is super hot here in Western Kentucky by July 1st. It does say that the ideal temp is 60 to 80 degrees, so we won't be hitting that until later March, so I've still got some time there. But then also it's going to be taking 70 days minimum. So if you start late March, you figure you've got May, you've got April, there's 60 days, you're going to be into mid-June by the time this is ready. So when you are planting, you really have to think about your end goal. When is it going to be finished? Because if it's going to finish up to, and the weather is too hot, it's just not going to do well. It's not going to thrive. It's going to wilt. It's not going to have good flavor. It could even bolt, which means it's going to start to flower and seed. So you have to be careful with your dates. Lettuce is not one that I would start inside. It tends to get spindly for me. I find it does much better if I just start it outside by seed. So I'll have some future videos on that for sure on how to do that. So other than that, let's see, I actually got 2 Landis winter lettuce. So again, that's just the favorite around here. I got 2 other types of lettuce. One is called Paris Island, and this is a romaine head. I've never really had any luck with the romaine head of lettuce, but I'm gonna try this one. It's not one that I've tried. It says that it is disease tolerant and bolt resistant. So this is another one that'll probably take me through June. And I think I'm gonna need that extra growing time to make it happen. Again, 60 to 80 degrees, ideal temp. It does say it's frost hardy. So I might actually try this one a little bit sooner. I might try this one in the raised beds in early March. So we're sitting in the second week of February, so I've got a few weeks on that yet. The last lettuce that I purchased this one because I really like the color. When I'm doing a good salad, I like to see multiple colors in my salad. Just straight green, it's just not appealing to me. So this one is called Merveille de Quatre Saisons, 4 seasons lettuce. So this is a French heirloom lettuce. Sprouts in 7 to 10 days, so it comes on quick. It does say it's frost hardy. So this is again one that I could probably plant in early March. We are supposed to get some bad weather in February, so I'm just gonna let it go till then. I used to get so excited about gardening that when this weather would break, I would just get out here and put anything in and just hope for the best. But honestly, guys, it's just a waste of seed. So we no longer do that, or I no longer do that. I try to be a lot more intentional with what I'm doing, because honestly, if you're just going to throw the seed out and hope for the best, it can be discouraging when it doesn't do very well at all. So we want to make sure we are successful. So I tend to look at dates. I'll sit down with my calendar, I'll map it out. I'll even go so far as to say, when will I be harvesting this? Because if you've got everything coming in at once, it doesn't work for me. I don't want that in my garden. I want things to come in slowly, successively. I want to have 2 or 3 things per week, and then something different in the following weeks, and then maybe plant in succession so that it comes in this week and then more plants develop 2 or 3 weeks later. You really want to have a long-term growing period if you're going to be eating fresh. You can't possibly harvest it all in 1 week. You can't possibly eat it all in 1 week. So unless it is a preserving vegetable, I don't fool with it that way. I try to be very intentional and set up a schedule, look at the calendar, map it all out, and decide what do I want and when do I want it. So I'll spend some time doing that in the next couple weeks, because really as March 1st approaches, it will be time to start getting some things into the raised beds. And I'm really looking forward to that, so I'm excited about that. So I've got some bigger plans this year for tomatoes. Last year, I was gone a lot in the summer, and I just didn't think I could fool with tomatoes much because of my schedule, the plans that I had. I decided really not to do any. I think, well, I shouldn't say that. I think I put in a few plants of Romas, and there was one other, but they really didn't do that well. Not well at all. We had a very wet July, and July and August is really where the plant starts to thrive and develop and put on fruit. But because it was so wet and so hot, they did very poorly. The leaves browned. They looked awful. It just wasn't appealing. I was very discouraged, so we just didn't do much with tomatoes. Regardless, this year I've got bigger tomato plans. So actually, I'm gonna do about 5 different types of tomato plants. And I know that for some, that's not even gonna hardly sound like anything. I am not doing the Roma tomato this year. I have not found it worth it, guys. A Roma tomato to me is supposed to be the one you choose for canning because it's mostly flesh and not real watery. But my goodness, I think I would probably have to plant 500 plants in order for it to have any kind of quantity where I can can it successfully and feel like it was worth my time. So I normally don't have a big tomato garden. I might have 20 plants, but if you're looking to can and preserve, 20 plants for me isn't enough. They don't come in quick enough. They don't come in all at once. They don't come in any kind of large quantity that you could just go out and capture 20 pounds a day, go back inside and can it up. And really, if you look at your canning recipes, that's what it calls for. You've got to have minimum 20 pounds of tomatoes. So if you've done any tomato canning, you're familiar with this. A lot of canners, home canners, will simply buy a box of canning tomatoes, which is fine, but it's very expensive. So anywhere from $12 to $20 is what you would pay for 1 box of canning tomatoes. Well, 1 box of canning tomatoes is probably going to yield about 8 pints of whatever it is you're trying to do. So I am looking to go big this year. Again, I'm going to do about 5 different types of tomatoes, and we're going to do them in very large quantity. So I'm considering, in fact, if I go with my largest garden, it might actually be rows of all and nothing but tomatoes. But nonetheless, I have purchased the bread and salt tomato. So this one just sounded really interesting. It says it does have a meaty flesh, good slicing tomato, and sauce making and everything in between. This could potentially be a good canning tomato. So we will see how it goes. Another one that I've gotten and I've done before is the German pink tomato. To me, this one has excellent flavor for fresh eating. So for slicing, for salads, just delicious. But it also says it's very good for juicing. So it's a very juicy tomato. Probably not one best for canning. So you've really got to look at your tomatoes and their descriptions, because they all seem to have, or they all do have, a different purpose. Now this one has a fun name. It's called the Mortgage Lifter. And the story is that a man was trying to pay off his mortgage, and he developed this tomato plant, and it did so well, and he sold so many tomatoes that in fact he was able to pay off his mortgage early. So says it's a delicious, rich, sweet taste, produces like mad. And that's exactly what I want. I want something that's gonna give me a huge yield. I wanna walk out my back door, I wanna go over here to the garden, I wanna be able to capture minimum 20 pounds a day. I'm planning to stay put this summer. I'm planning to work out of the garden. I'm planning to do things a whole lot differently because I'm planning to put up a whole lot of food and try to be a little bit more self-sustaining in that way. So a tomato that produces like mad sounds like the tomato for me. Here's another one that I'm going to work with, and I've had this one in the past. This is the classic beefsteak tomato. This is your go-to for slicing. If anybody just enjoys a nice thick tomato slice on their sandwich, their BLT, their hamburger, this is usually everyone's number one choice. So I'd like to think that I'm going to be able to grow enough this year that I will in fact give some away, or potentially even sell some on the side. This would probably be the one that people would want, because this is the one that most everybody recognizes as being most like a grocery store tomato. So that's the classic beefsteak. Then I've got, well, one more that I don't have by seed. So I'm actually going to try something different this year, and I'm going to be purchasing some tomato plants. So I've got those on order through a farmer that's nearby. The cost is very reasonable. It's about 32 cents a plant because I'm buying in bulk. And if it all works out, I will have a huge tomato harvest, one that I could give away, can, and even sell. So that's where we're headed this summer. We're gonna really try to work up tomatoes, really try to become a little bit more self-sufficient and potentially even capture some income off of the garden. So, but that's what's going on today. We've got big plans in the works, so make sure that you are following along. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I hope you will follow along. Leave some comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And again, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you watch for notifications. We are now officially at the onset of the season in my mind, so there's going to be a lot to talk about and a lot to have a great week, and keep your plans going. All right, guys, that's it for today. This is Lori with a Plan in Mind. Have a good week.